Welcome everyone to our Packers News Cap Chat, virtually alongside Tom Silverstein. I am Olivia Reiner. Today we are taking the M out of Camp Chat, our daily show, and focusing a little bit more today on the salary cap, specifically topics that relate to the financial situation of the Green Bay Packers. Before we get into our conversation today, I want to remind you, as always, we love to hear from you. If you have any questions, head over to the YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope chat. Leave us a question, leave us a thought, even if it doesn't relate to the salary cap, and we will address some of those toward the end of our conversation today. Tom, the Packers have a very lengthy list of 2021 free agents. Let's take a look at exactly who they are today. That's a pretty substantial list. Some big names on there in nose tackle, Kenny Clark, left tackle, David Bakhtiari, running back, Aaron Jones, center, Corey Linsley, cornerback, Kevin King. You can take a look at some of the other names that are on there. In years past, teams often try to lock up some of their bigger free agent names. We've seen this happen in the past to players like Aaron Rodgers multiple times. This season, however, the list is intact. How is the future financial situation uncertainty impacting the decisions that teams are making with their 2021 free agents right now?
Well, I think you're seeing a lot of teams put the brakes on some of the long extensions they might be doing in regard to guys who are going to be free agents in 2021. And it's because they don't know whether there's going to be a season. And they don't want to pay a huge signing bonus to a guy, and then he ends up not having, we end up not having a season, and he gets paid for not performing. We've seen a few deals done. Uh, Most notably, the Chargers did Joey Bosa, and they handed him a ton of money up front. But that's a little bit of the exception. Even Patrick Mahomes on his 10-year deal got a $10 million signing bonus, which is just crazy. But they guaranteed like $63 million worth of it. What it does is they don't have to put up upfront money now during this pandemic when maybe their cash levels are not going to be very high, their revenue is not going to be as good as it normally would be. They'll pay down the road in the form of guaranteed money. So each year his money's guaranteed whether he's on the roster or not. I think with the Packers, I think they're very much slow playing Kenny Clark and David Bakhtiari, who are two guys they want to re-sign, and they will re-sign them, but or put the franchise tag on them. But they want to see, is there going to be a season?
There's a lot of names on that list, including Kenny Clark and David Bakhtiari. We know next season that the absolute minimum that the salary cap will be is 175 minimum dollars, not including any sort of rollover cap space that the Packers would have in 2020 that would carry over into the 2021 season. How will the cap in 2021 impact the Packers' ability to lock down this very lengthy list of free agents?
Well, it's not great. I took a look at their 2021 cap, at least what their responsibilities are right now, and they're a little above the 175 million right now. Now, a lot of things will happen between then and now. It'll go up because they're going to cut some guys who had signing bonuses, and that rolls over to next year. But then there's going to be some guys that they get rid of too. That'll create some room. But I think they're fairly tight. And what they're going to have to do probably is use a lot of cash, a lot of signing bonuses to structure the deals so that the cap charge comes in 2022. The big cap charges come in 2022, 2023, when they expect everything to be back. And then the cap numbers will probably just skyrocket after 2021.
Tom, I want to talk a little bit more about that. It's a daunting task to figure out exactly how the Packers are going to keep as many of the free agents as they want in 2021. However, Packers and every other NFL team has specialists that are able to rework contracts and reconsider exactly how they're able to keep some of those players around. How could Russ Ball structure a contract so that the burden wouldn't be so substantial in 2021?
Well, I think it would have to be in that guaranteed contract form where you guarantee the base salaries each year. Players are reluctant to do that, especially if the base salary is big this year, because they're not certain they're going to get it because of the COVID. Games might be canceled, but you always want as much money up front, even if it's guaranteed. You get that money up front, it's money in the bank, it's interest, it's present day value, as opposed to, well, I'll get this money, but it's going to be 5 years, and I don't know where I'll be 5 years from now. The other aspect of it is, let's not forget that Brian Gutekunst has drafted people to replace many of those free agents. He has protected himself by, drafting a couple inside guys for in case Corey Linsley leaves. He drafted a running back, A.J. Dillon, in case Aaron Jones leaves. He signed a tackle. He doesn't really have a left tackle. He has to re-sign, Bakhtiari. But Bakhtiari and Clark are the big guys. And then, he's got some younger corners that he can continue to use if he loses King. So you can see that he has sort of positioned himself to replace guys. And if they need to cut Aaron Rodgers next year, then he's got a rookie there too.
Tom, you had mentioned a little bit earlier talking about the franchise or transition tag potentially being a solution, a short-term solution for teams that are interested in keeping their top talent around that might not want to commit to a long-term deal in the present moment. We're even seeing this season 13 players offered or tagged with the franchise tag. It's a means of buying some time a little bit more just before they have to make a bigger decision with the player. How likely is it that we see an uptick in franchise or transition tags in 2021?
I think we will see a number of them. I think the difficult part for some teams, and the Packers are one of these teams, is that the cap numbers, the 1 year cap number on a franchise tag is really high. So David Bakhtiari's cap number might be $16 million. And the reason is because that's the payoff for getting to keep him from going to free agency, is you have to take on a 1 year deal. If they were signing him to an extension, they would probably spread that signing bonus out, and his cap number would be like $5 million instead of $16 million. So, there's a lot of risk. If you're a team that's really way under the cap, then you can afford to franchise a guy, no problem. But then you also have to get him to report. He's probably not going to go to the off-season workouts because he's mad. So there's a lot of downsides to the franchise tags too.
The Packers are going to have to weigh all of their options when it comes to retaining some of these top names on their free agents list for 2021. We will see what they decide to do, and we'll see exactly how this season pans out. Moving into another topic, a question that we've been getting kind of as we've been going along, doing some of these live streams over the last several weeks. Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, I think you know who he is. His future in Green Bay has been a pretty hot topic of discussion among fans, the media, and even Aaron Rodgers himself has discussed his own future ever since the Packers drafted rookie quarterback Jordan Love this season. A lot is going to factor into Rodgers' future, including his own level of play over the next few years, Jordan Love's development, and, of course, the financial implications of moving on early from Aaron Rodgers. Tom, purely based off of his contract, and I'll pull some of these details up right here and get rid of our Packers News logo so you can take a better look at that, everybody. Purely based off of his contract, when would parting ways with Rodgers be even viable from a financial standpoint?
Well, as your excellent chart shows, if you look at the bottom part, it shows you what the dead money, what it would cost in salary cap, what he would count against the cap if you released him. And, of course, this year they couldn't do it. As it shows, you would take a $29.51 million hit if they cut him right now. Actually, at this point, because it's past June 1st, I think they'd push a lot of that. But regardless, they're not going to cut him this year. Next year, they could cut him and they would actually gain $4.8 million worth of cap space. That's because some of that cap money is already counting against the cap next year. And then you're wiping out all his salary in 2021, which is 14.7 plus, I think there's a roster bonus, or is that included roster bonus? I can't remember. But anyway, you're clearing out a bunch of money from his base salary because you don't have to pay it anymore. It's off the books. So they would actually gain $4.8 million. Now, the reason they could do this, he would still have a huge dead money number. And the more dead money you have, usually the worse your cap is. It's just an indication of that you're taking up a lot of money and devoting it to guys that aren't there anymore. But they drafted a guy, Jordan Love, and he doesn't count very much against the cap. So the fact that they have him, the dead money isn't as big a deal. They don't have to go out and sign Drew Brees or Tom Brady or whoever it is. They've got a guy who's on their roster, and he doesn't count that much against the cap. So it wouldn't kill them to release Aaron Rodgers.
We've got some options, and like I said, a lot is going to play into that decision. Purely, this is just a discussion from a financial standpoint.
This is about numbers, and this is what Russ Ball does on his whiteboard or whatever he has in his office. You're constantly grinding the numbers and trying to see what you can do, what you can't do. You got to predict the future, try to predict the future. If they did get rid of Aaron Rodgers, do they have to go out and sign somebody, which adds to your cap? Or do they just roll with Jordan Love, and then it's not such a big deal?
We cannot predict the future, unfortunately. If we could, that would be pretty handy because we would know this job if I could. There's a lot we would know, including whether or not the NFL season will go on without a hitch because of the coronavirus pandemic. There's a lot at stake for a good number of players. Let's take a look at some of the players on the roster that have the most to lose. And when I say the most to lose, I mean the most money tied to playing actual games this season. Take a look at players like Davante Adams. His base salary is going to be of $12 million is going to be paid out throughout all 17 weeks of the season. Same with the roster bonus per game. If he's active on the roster there, you can go down, look, David Bakhtiari being another one of the players that has a lot to lose this season if games are not played. Tom, what will the players gain, even if there are a couple games played this season?
Well, so typically, the way this works is that, as you said, the base salary is spread out, is paid over 17 weeks. So you get an equal share each week. Now, what the NFL is saying is any money that isn't earned will not be paid. I mean, any money that is not earned as a result of playing in the games will not be ultimately paid. So if they play 3 games, you're only going to get 3/17 of that. Davante Adams is only going to get 3/17 of that $12 million. So he has a lot invested in playing this year. The one thing that the players were able to negotiate is that if they play 1 game this year, then everybody gets a year of credit. So David Bakhtiari might only play in 1 game, but he'll be a free agent next year if that's the case. Same with Kenny Clark. Anybody, you get a year of credit towards free agency. And that's important, but you're going to lose money. And it's typically these veteran guys who are in the later years of their contract. A guy like Zadarius Smith, who's in the 2nd year, he had a $9 million roster bonus that was paid in March. Smart his agent did the smart thing and had it paid third day of the league year. So that money has been paid, and he doesn't have to return it no matter what happens this year.
Right, and Preston Smith also had a $4 million roster bonus that he has already got somewhere in his bank account. Doesn't have to worry about potentially losing it. And, any money that would be tied to a game this season. So that was our little chat there about the salary cap. If you have any questions, let's get into some of those now. They don't have to necessarily be related to the salary cap. Hello, everybody. Let's go into, here we go. Let's start with Rick here. We've talked a little bit about the offensive line in live streams past, and I think it was with Ryan Wood, the two of us, we noted that the real quality depth along the offensive line is on the interior. They don't have a whole lot of backup options at tackle. Rick Wagner, David Bakhtiari. There's some discussion as to whether or not Wagner is going to be the starter at right tackle. Perhaps the Packers would move out Billy Turner and they slide somebody else in at right guard. But those are the big names that are there at tackle. Possibly there's some depth behind them, including Yash Nyman, Alex Light. However, those players are not exactly proven, and when they have had their opportunities, specifically Light, in games, they haven't necessarily proved that they are starting caliber talent or even backup caliber talent. So that being said, how likely is it that the Packers at some point, either in the next several weeks or during the season, look outside for a tackle, someone like Jared Valdir, who the Packers signed as a free agent? He came out, I guess he wasn't even a free agent. He came out of retirement last season in 2019.
Yeah, I don't even know what his situation is, whether he wants to play or, if he's holding out to try to get the best offer he can. I also don't know how they feel about him. He made it through that game against Detroit and did fairly well. But, their offensive tackles just aren't sitting out there waiting for work. They've got work. Anybody who can stand up and play tackle in the NFL without giving up a sack, 7 out of 10 times, pass rush or pass blocks, has got a job. It's just too vital of a position. So anybody you pick up is going to be a stopgap guy. You're going to hope that he stays healthy, or he's a guy like Valdir. And you've got to give some of your younger guys a chance and find out whether they can play or not. You've got a lot invested in them, a lot of time invested in them. You need to find out whether they can play.
Figure it out or move on. We'll see if they decide to do anything there. However, it is a very crowded offensive line room right now, as it is. Thank you, Rick, for your question. We appreciate it.
I will say that I think the offensive line could be really troublesome all over the league. If the COVID thing kind of spreads around, that's an area where, you don't want to go into a game with 2 practice squad tackles, protecting Aaron Rodgers. That could wind up being a real big problem for the NFL if a bunch of tackles get hurt or wind up on COVID.
Yeah, and it's so hard to minimize contact out on the field as it is, and they're all working in their own groups and practicing with and against each other. If one offensive lineman has it and winds up putting an entire offensive line room on the COVID IR list, what happens?
Yeah, he might. People are going to get it, and the key is can they catch it fast enough before it starts spreading?
It's a good question. It's a question that we're going to have going into training camp and hopefully going into the regular season, that everything starts on time. We'll move on to a friend of the show. Aaron Nagler has a question for us. Thanks for joining us, Aaron. He's got a question for you, Tom. He wants to know if we think that Green Bay would actually utilize the franchise tag, even in sort of a unique situation as the Packers are in right now, heading into 2021. They seem to loathe it traditionally. Tom, when is the last time that the Packers have used the franchise or the transition tag that you can remember since it's been around?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I know they used it
to put you on the spot.
Typically, they've used it, and this is how they would probably use it. Like Chad Clifton They used it on not too long ago. Oh man. I think they used it on Ryan Pickett maybe one year. Anyway, typically what they do, Corey Williams. Yeah, this is going back. I think what they would do typically is use that tag to buy time. So they'll take the cap hit then, and then they'll kind of wait till free agency slows down a little bit. It's a way to keep the guy out of free agency, and then you start negotiating and hope you get a deal done, and then it's more cap friendly. I can't imagine them letting David Bakhtiari hit the market. I can't see them letting Kenny Clark hit the market because they're gone. They are absolutely gone, and so they may have to suck it up and do it. It's just not going to be real easy because their cap situation's not that great.
That being said, everyone is going to be in this situation next season. Brian Gutekunst said it himself. Everyone is going to be strapped for cash. It's not just going to be the Packers.
But where it's going to affect is not the Bakhtiari and Clarks. It's going to affect the Aaron Joneses and the Kevin Kings and maybe the Linsleys, the really solid starters who find that oh man, maybe teams aren't spending as much because the big guys are always going to get paid. They're too good, and teams are going to pay them. They're going to find a way to pay them. It's that tier below that might find free agency not to their liking.
No, they will not. It's not. I do not envy a 2021 free agent, unfortunately, simply because of the financial situation of the league going forward. Thank you, Aaron, for your question. Love to see you. Let's move on to Kenny has another question again. Kenny wants to know, can the Packers get more production from their tight ends this year? The Packers said goodbye to tight end Jimmy Graham, who's headed down south to Chicago after just 1 year left on his deal in Green Bay, and the Packers decided to part ways with him. This year, they'll be looking to tight end Jay Sternberger, one of their draft picks from last season, to step up and contribute after a season marred by injury in 2019. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of him in the passing game. We saw a lot of his run blocking capabilities, and I think Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur were pretty pleased with what they saw out of Sternberger in year one for him. What can they expect out of him as a producer, a key part of this offense in year two?
Well, so my feeling is this towards the tight ends is if they truly go to the offense that we all think Matt LaFleur is going to, which is a run-first offense, lots of play action, lots of bootlegging, then they don't have to have, Travis Kelce at tight end. What they need is someone who can, is good at getting off the line of scrimmage, can do something with the ball once it gets in their hand, get them 8-10 yards. I think this is different than what you had like in Mike McCarthy's offense, where you needed that tight end to line up in the slot and go down the middle of the field and open up zone coverage. I think the run game is going to make the tight end here. It's going to be about, can you block and then get off that block and get out on a route. It's not going to be so much about one-on-one coverage lining up as a wide receiver. That's my gut feeling. So I think, I am always loath to say Robert Tynan's going to do great things because I've gotten burned by that. But I think those guys, even Mercedes Lewis, if you get him on the move, Yosai DeGuara, that they're going to try some things with him at tight end. I think it'll be a group effort. I don't think you're going to see one guy. And I think the key is going to be how well they run the ball. If they run the ball, then I think they can get the ball to their tight ends no matter who it is.
Matt LaFleur certainly loves to see his tight ends being willing to block in addition to his wide receivers, and we'll see exactly how the tight ends are used in this offense going into year two under head coach Matt LaFleur. Thank you, Kenny, for your question. That is going to do it for us today, everybody. We'll be back over the next few days as the Packers get ready for their very first on-field portion of training camp. No pads on Saturday. However, there will be Packers News. That wasn't a great transition. We will be there. So make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for all of your Packers news. Make sure you're checking out our social media pages as well. We'll have lots of updates for you over there. For Tom, I'm Olivia. We'll see you next time.